On the Fringe with Dan, RadioStyle. Hope everybody out there's doing great. Part of my Law of One series, and certainly the first video of that, is going to really tie into the two components that kind of really help, I think, in my opinion, explain duality, polarity, all those things. So the idea of service to self and service to others is what we're going to be talking about. Now, there's a few things that come into play here that I am not trying to prove. I'm not trying to sway anyone's opinions about whether or not channeling, for example, is real. I believe in it. I'm not trying to say you have to. I'm not trying to say you don't. I saw a lot of stuff with Law of One, or what it's also called as Law of Ra. And I've seen debunking, and I've seen a lot of things out there. I've seen people even debunk Seth Speaks, for example, which is another book that kind of came out at the same time. That was Jane Roberts, I think, wrote that, but very good book. And both of these things have had enormous impact in my life. So, again, I could be crazy. I'll happily say that. Be these ideas crazy as they may. Okay, fine. Let's not argue that per se. But this information has been very helpful to me as far as understanding how things work, the idea of how evil exists. All these questions that a lot of people ask, why are there so many narcissists nowadays? This material, in my mind, answers a lot of that. So to take a couple, again, assumptions. One, channeling I think is cool. There's different people that have different abilities. I think this is one of the better channeled materials that's out there. I probably would put Seth Speaks in that category as well. It also kind of assumes that we're going to talk about it. Again, not trying to prove it, but that past lives, that multiple lives exist. I'm not going to try to debate that. I know some religions don't believe that. Well, most religions don't believe in that, but there's a lot of the more metaphysical and a lot of the other readings that are out there that suggest the opposite. So, right or wrong, we're kind of jumping on that assumption a little bit. And it also assumes that I'm not going to debate here, and maybe I'll do a show on it, but it assumes that people understand that there's kind of a purpose to this, that there's a soul purpose. So on top of living multiple lives, which is a stretch for many, we've also got a soul purpose. We're here for reasons. We're trying to accomplish something on a soul level. It's kind of a way of looking at your soul is like looking at the way your life has been, right? Maybe as a younger person, you had some ideals and you've tried to work through these and you've grown and studied and gone down certain paths, and learned through that and become a different person through that knowledge of experiences, right? Different jobs, different people, different relationships. All these things kind of lead up to a different version of you. The same is true with lives. We have a lot of different lives because as a soul, there are those experiences, those different jobs, those different things. And it gives depth and character to our souls and makes it more understanding. Like it's a way of trying to understand that we're not all in everything all at once by subdividing ourselves and sort of separating ourselves from everything. And it gives us the ability to experience lack when in reality we don't have such things, at least maybe in our home dimension or just in general. It's kind of how manifestation works. So how it came about, I want to say it was back in the late 70s, early 80s. James Allen McCarty, Don Elkins, and Carla Ruckert, she would go into a trance-like state and she would essentially channel this being Ra, or this civilization Ra, and it's supposedly, by the way, the same Ra. If you go through all this Law of One material, or Law of Ra material, and I've read it through cover to cover, basically, 3 times throughout my life so far. And I will definitely do it probably 3 more times over the years. It is fascinating, and every time I read it, I get a different take on my understanding of it. So these 3 people get together, I don't know how often, but she would get in this trance state. These guys would ask questions, and Ra would come through and answer them. And the questions are very interesting because one of the main things that you get right off the bat is everything's sort of a duality. Everything exists simultaneously as a duality. And I think that's where, when people talk about not being a polarized society where there's a left and a right, a hot and a cold, an up and a down, right? The two, exist because of each other, but they don't exist separately from the other. They have to have the pair with them, plus and minus. Like, it has to have its opposite or it can't be. And it seems like really everything is both plus and minus. It's not one or the other. Like, it's both. And so in the sense of the way law of Ra reads in a lot of cases, if, say, for example, you're teaching others, you're a teacher-student. If you're a student learning from a teacher, you're a student-teacher. But it's always hyphenated because we're always everything. It's that yin and yang concept. No matter how much you're being a student right now, you're also being a teacher to your teacher. It's a neat reality that seems to exist in life. So, service to self and service to others. Getting back to the point of what these two concepts have to do with. Now, again, we're all here. We're trying to evolve our souls. And there are cycles. There's cycles of time. And when that cycle's complete, we have what's kind of like a graduation, if you will. Law of One refers to it as a harvest, which is kind of a cool way, like the crops have grown, right? Law of One's like, yeah, there is a point at the end of the cycle when the harvest occurs. Some call it the event. Some call it, I don't know. What is the rapture? Like the point when things change so much that a segment of people become essentially invisible to another segment of people. And it's a dimensional thing. It's weird. And I'm hoping we experience it in our life. My understanding is we will. Because there is a cycle. You know, they talked about, what was it, 2012? They were saying the end of the Mayan calendar. Now, whether that's exactly right or not, you got to look at the fact that the Gregorian calendar has been messed with. They put in some missing time at one point. It was a few years or something, like a year and a half. Like, it's been messed with a little. So what, 2012, 2019, 2030? I don't really care. I'm not all that worried about it. We're talking like many, many thousands of year cycles. Like, I think one's 12,500, 600 years cycle, 12,500. 12.6, I don't remember. And then there's like a 3,600 one, and there's like a 256,000, right? There's these giant cycles. There's the Earth around the sun, and the sun's actually orbiting around another body, and then that body's kind of orbiting around a larger body, and then you've got the galaxy swirling. So there's a lot of orbits happening within orbits, and it's actually very cool when you think about the dance and the poetry of how life truly plays out on a galactic scale. And certainly down here, on the personal level, we kind of dance and intertwine with each other. It's really cool how we all touch. So as these cycles are coming to an end, there's what I kind of call the gathering. Basically stole it from The Highlander. It's a great movie, by the way, the original one anyway. It gets really crazy outside of that. I don't know, I never saw the TV show. But The Highlander has a gathering. It's got this concept where everyone kind of comes together right basically at the end before the big moment. And that's what's happening now. The harvest is occurring, and there's many people, beings, light, energy, that have come from other dimensions, other planets, other places. Oh yeah, did I mention there's other planets and people live there? Yeah, I guess we got to assume that that's okay for the moment, so bear with me. But we all came here from other dimensions, other planets, things like the Pleiades you've heard of, Sirius you've heard of, Andromeda, some of the bad ones I think. There's like, which could be a whole slew of people that are service to self. There's others, and I'm forgetting a bunch of them. It's okay. So we've all come here to help with the harvest. Some people have come here to harvest or be harvested as, if you will, but it's really harvest themselves into a service to others path, and some have harvested themselves into a service to self path. Both paths exist here. There is a polarity, and they exist basically as opposites of each other. Service to others, in my mind, seems like an easier path to go, but it also seems like, I don't know, it's kind of like from the Star Wars standpoint, it was like the Jedi versus like the dark side, right? Like, it's easy for me to get behind the whole Jedi side and the other side of choking people and killing and just senseless murder. And I was like, that seems like kind of not cool, right? I don't know. I generally don't like that. So I've always kind of slanted towards this service to others. I've done nothing but customer service my whole life, and here I am doing videos, which, by the way, is a really cool outlet if you like to do stuff for other people. Recommend all of you. Here I am being a service to others person, and that's really my focus as a human, and it has to do with trying to help others. And the harvest, or to be able to be harvested, means you just need 50+% of the time of being of a helping nature or trying to do good just in general to others, trying to be of a service to others. How can I help you? How we're intertwined. What you do for me, I'm doing for you. Like this interaction of harmony that kind of happens. Like I'm helping you, and that actually turns around and helps me. But that's how the service to others path kind of works. Then there's the service to self. The service to self path requires that you are selfish in such a way that you get other people to do things for you. You use and abuse, if you will, to get what you want. You have more of a darker energy component about you. They're very self-centered. Everything revolves around them. And it's all about having to behave like that to harvest 95% of the time. At least this is what Law of Ra, or Law of One, suggests. 95% of the time, you've got to be service to self oriented to harvest. Wow. Just over 50% service to others. Seems a lot easier. 95% service to self. Dang. Now, one of the things they talk about in Law of Ra that's interesting about service to self, service to others, depending on where you fall in that spectrum. Some of us are aware of where we fall in it, and we've chosen one way or the other. And those are usually people that have oftentimes come to help. It's usually why you're much more aware of it. It's just something that's very obvious to you. And it's kind of because of once you evolve past this level of living, you see it very black and white. Let's put it that way. Now, for those that are here trying to figure it out, a lot of times you don't know where I do fall in that. What am I? Who am I trying to be? Am I going to harvest? Well, probably. That's a lot of people are expected to. But a lot of us don't know. So what is it? What do you feel better towards? Do you like it when you're helping others? Do you get a little bit of a kick for that? Or do you find that generally speaking, you're always trying to get others to do for you? You don't particularly care about them or their feelings? Like, if that's the path you feel, if that's where you feel more comfortable or helping others, understand that by knowing that, by understanding how you're interacting with the world and how you're feeling about it, typically, voice of the soul, if you will, how you're feeling, you will make decisions and hopefully grow yourself in that direction once you're aware of it. When you're aware of it, it's certainly much, much easier. So you've got these two paths that are going on. This harvest is occurring at some point. From what a lot of the sources say, it's probably going to be in our lifetimes. I don't know. I don't know when it is, and you'll probably never catch me giving any sort of dates. I mean, there's a lot of people that throw crazy dates out. Heck, Christians have been saying the end of the world is going to come for, I don't know, like years and years and years now. Like over hundreds of years they've been saying it like every so often, and goodness gracious, they've been wrong every time. And I also don't think it's an end of the world. I think it's a cycle. I think it's the beginning of a new cycle. And I think cycles can change and differences can happen. Now, is there going to be a cataclysmic end? I don't think so. I think things will keep spinning and turning just like they always have. I think consciousness will evolve and change. That's where I think there's a shift going on. And once the harvest basically happens, at that point, I think a lot of energy is going to go to other locations geographically or even from the standpoint of the universe, but it's still consciousness. You're still, where a lot of us are in our own little heads, like some would say with the Matrix, right? Like you're in this computer, it's not real, it's just neurons firing. And to a great degree, there's a lot of truth to that. So again, it's a consciousness that we share with others, and it seems that that's how we interact in this crazy world that we live in. But that being said, this harvest is going to happen. This gathering is occurring now. Some of us have consciously chosen the paths we're on. A lot of us have a hard time understanding why there's negativity, why there's anger, why there's fighting, why there's maybe some people wonder why people don't want it to be chaotic, right? Like, I don't know what side you're on. Again, I come from the service to others, so it's really hard for me to imagine the true thinkings of a service to self person, but I know we all exist because of the polarities. We all exist together for a reason. And people ask, well, if there's a God, then how can all these horrible, evil things exist? Because everything must have an opposite. It has to here. It's what everything is here. I mean, the planet itself is polar. It's got a North Pole and a South Pole. And when you look at the way energy comes in, from the Aurora Borealis and all that stuff, right? I believe it shoots out of the north and comes in the south. Makes a big giant loop, though. Goes in a direction. That's how it goes. So there is a motion and movement through these polarities. Some call it contrast. I'm losing the word that Law of One uses frequently for it, but there is a need for these the differences, so we can see what's right or wrong relative to the choices we made, so we can feel good or bad relative to the choices we've made. And again, these decisions aren't necessarily right or wrong. It is dependent upon the path that you're choosing. It's dependent upon what you're trying to accomplish. It's dependent upon who you are. Now, if you're being horrible to people, there's karmic debt to be paid, sure. One of the things that was interesting that came up, one of the big differences, this might help for those of you that are on the fence about what you are, it's the idea that people that are service to others are very aware of the concept of free will, meaning I wouldn't and couldn't and don't want to impose or force my will on another. Now, I might talk to them, I might share my thoughts, and they can do with that as they may. I would never want to infringe on their free will. Service to self does not see that. I mean, free will exists, but from their standpoint, it's how can I subvert that? How can I get them to give that to me? And that's why there's oftentimes some interesting scenarios that they will create with their relationships, be it through violence, be it through intimidation. There's arrogant, there's just different aloof. There's a lot of ways that you can take energy from someone, and they will give it to you freely if you do it the way, that's appropriate for that person psychologically. Again, there's some crazy stuff out there. Service to others is different, of course. It's much easier. It's an issue of love, and that's why I do the things I do. So again, the concept of free will is something that a service to self person doesn't see in others. It doesn't care. I want what I want, and that's how can I make them give me that. Now, for those of you that are on that path, like, maybe some of my audience was into relationships and trying to manifest people, right? And I don't care what they think. Something to consider. I'm not really good at that. Maybe that's why I have a hard time teaching people like that. I'm more of they have free will. Be cool and groovy, and they'll choose you because it feels good that way, right? Versus I need to find a way to get them to give me their power so I have their power. And that's a very service to self focused kind of path. So that's sort of how those thought processes differ. Now, supposedly, here's the cool part. We're in third density now, right? A lot of people say we're in fourth density, third dimension. I'll do a show on the differences, and frankly, it's interesting, but I don't know. It's more semantics to me in a lot of ways. But supposedly, once you get to the sixth density, and 8, it supposedly recycles, right? So 6 and then 7, and then you kind of, I don't know, you go into a new octave. That's what Law of Ra talks about as well, is they're octaves almost. So every 8 densities, the density below has no idea. It's like looking into heaven, right? What's in heaven? That's like an octave above us. It's kind of similar to that. So supposedly once we all get to 6th density, service to self and service to others is no longer a case. It all unifies back into love and one or light or whatever. I don't know. It depends who it is that's making it. But you come into source to a degree, and there's no longer this separation. So service to self, service to others, 2 different paths, the way we interact with the life of the world, how we can be harvested. Very fascinating. Law of Ra talks about all of it. I'm going to do more stuff on this Law of Ra and just different concepts of it because it's a fascinating read. There's a lot of great information in there. Whether it's real or not, it's fun to read. It's kind of like, again, watching Star Wars. And if you really pay attention to the Force and the concepts of the Force, it's not necessarily real, but when you pay attention to it, it's a really good way to guide your life as far as, loving others, being good to others, kind of letting that love and light kind of flow through you versus using anger and these sorts of darker feelings as a means to get to this other magic, right? There's 2 different paths. So they're both brilliant the way they are. So real or not real, it's excellent advice on how to navigate and why things are the way they are. And it answered to me a lot of the deeper questions, again, like why, if there's a God, then why is there so much violence? These kinds of things kind of make more sense to me once I understand the complexity of reality and the duality of it and the polarity that exists and the fact that we have contrast to show us things we want more of and things we want less of. And it helps us choose which direction we're going to go. It's like bumping into something. We're like the little pinballs bouncing around, right? Bing, ding, 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 ding. So that's pretty much what's going on. So service to self, service to others. It's part of that web that we all live with. Hopefully you found this interesting. More videos will be coming. It's just something fun for me on the Fringe. It's different. It's out there. It's stuff I like to talk about and not necessarily just real heavy with law of attraction like my other channel, Dan RadioStyle. By the way, if you haven't seen that channel, go ahead and check it out. It's very into manifesting, law of attraction, how we can try to attract people and places to us, how thought transmissions work, which all that's a good crossover type topic too. Anyway, I appreciate all you guys. It's Dan RadioStyle on the Fringe with Dan RadioStyle. It's probably what this channel is more or less going to become. And yeah, I appreciate all of you guys. Thank you so much. More great shows coming your way. Please leave topics in the comments below about shows you'd like to see me do, and we'll see what we can do for you. Thanks, guys.